Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Thanks for tuning in for another episode. We are out here on a buggy summer day. The Wisconsin state bird, otherwise known as the mosquitoes, are absolutely horrendous. We had, I just saw in the news last night, we've had one of the wettest Junes in record, which has led to like the worst mosquitoes I've ever personally seen. Can't even go outside of the house. Normally if you're on the water, you're perfectly fine. But right now, like I've just, in the 20 seconds I've tried to get this video going, I've been bit twice just because I've slowed down to a slower idle. As you can see, here's one of the ones I whacked. I just dropped it. Anyways, we got a couple hours to get out this morning. I just want to do a little fishing. I'm actually headed to ICAST here tomorrow, so you guys will probably be watching this after ICAST. But I just wanted to get out and do a little fishing. And I figured one thing I'd do for you, because I get a lot of questions on this, is just kind of show you a breakdown of how to use some different types of swim jig trailers. You know, my favorite is a boot tail swim bait that I actually cut down. So I'll show you that, but I also want to show you the other various types that a lot of people like as well. And just the different situations and scenarios where I would choose one trailer over another, because I truly believe that the trailer choice on your swim jig is extremely critical. You will get a lot less bites if you're using the wrong trailer in the wrong situation. If you're using the right one in the right situation, it's like a whole different bait. So I want to walk you through kind of where and when I would choose to use certain ones. Hopefully we catch a couple of fish mixed in, and yeah, hopefully they're biting this morning. So why don't you come along with me and we'll see if we can catch a few fish, hopefully not get bit by too many mosquitoes, and have a good fun morning. All right, so the first trailer choice, and this is by far my favorite, is a boot tail swim bait. Now I personally prefer to use a boot tail swim bait that's a thicker, less limber material, meaning this is a Reaction Innovation Skinny Dipper, the Berkeley Grass Pig. Those baits have a tougher texture, and the reason I really like that is twofold. One, they hold up better as a trailer. You know, I could throw a Kitech, say Swing Impact on here, but that's such a soft material that after one bite it would be gone. And the bigger issue with that is that bait has so much tail wag, it doesn't move the swim jig as a whole. This tougher material on, say, this Skinny Dipper or the Grass Pig allows the boot tail roll to transfer into the bait, so the bait rolls during the entire retrieve. With a Kitech, it's just the tail that moves. You want the bait. The key to a swim jig is generally to get the bait moving back and forth. So the first one is going to be a boot tail. Now the reason, and let's see if you can see that swimming through the water. You can see how the whole bait's shaking. And because the bait's shaking, what that does is that gets the skirt moving and everything just generally moves. The key now with a boot tail is this really allows you to work a swim jig through a whole lot of area. Like, it's a really good bait to cover a ton of water. The other swim jigs are going to be a little bit more geared towards a specific type of cover. But if I'm just looking to cover water, throw at every target. So if I go down this bank, I might have a few trees, I might have some rock, I got a tree offshore, I got a dock, and I want to cover everything. The swim jig with the boot tail, in my opinion, is going to be the best all-around trailer. Well, that took about 5 casts. Nice chunky smallmouth. You guys can't resist. Oh God, you're a pin. You cannot resist Goldilocks. Oh God. I mean, he ate that thing. Nice chunky. I mean, it's 1.5 pound or 14-incher. Let him go. Fix our trailer. That's one thing I love about the Core Tackle swim jig is how well it locks the trailer into place. And we go with the light wire weed guard just to keep everything, just to allow, I guess, better hookups and better movement from the bait. But that fish, so that fish was around that kind of those different limbs that are touching the water. There's really not a whole lot that comes into the water, but there is a little shade patch mixed in with just some of the different limbs that are sticking in. And that would be like that tree in itself. If I were to throw just a, you know, jig or something in there, it might take me a while to fish that. With a swim jig, I can make 3 casts through there and be done with it. If there's an active one, he'll eat it. If there's not, well, I just move on, but I'm not spending a whole lot of time. Oh, there's another one with him. Not a bad one. Get in here. Not a bad one at all. The old Goldilocks boot tail. All right, so one thing to point out with that, so it doesn't look like I'm fishing anything here, but there's actually a little bit of a rock lip. And that's one reason I love a boot tail, because a boot tail, I can fish it. It's basically a swim bait. It's a glorified swim bait, you know, that's weedless and has a little bit more bulk to it. So if you've got fish that are not holding onto any specific cover and you want to cover a little bit more water, the swim jig's great for that with a boot tail, because that's really all it is. You know, and from a retrieve standpoint, because it's the boot tail, I'm not doing a whole lot to it. You know, I'll stop it, I might twitch it, but it's a lot of, you know, just kind of straight retrieve, vary the retrieve a little bit, you know, in small pops just to get the skirt to flare. But remember, that swim jig's going side to side so much that that's enough to trigger the strike on its own right. So you don't have to do a whole lot when you're fishing a boot tail. So I just went ahead and put on our Guilty Pleasure core tackle swim jig. It's our bluegill colored one of the fan favorites. And the next trailer I'm going to show you is a 3-inch Pit Boss. Now, I would consider this your Craw style trailer. So I'm just going to thread this on, but I want to point something out here. So there's 2 ways to rig a Craw style trailer. You can either rig it so it's flat, like that, which is what most people do, or what I actually recommend is to rig it on its side so that it's like that, and your trailers, your legs are actually going to spread out more in the same direction as a tail of a fish. It doesn't really matter in terms of overall like how you rig it. I'm still just going to slide it on and just push it right on up over our cone keeper. But you can see here, so now my tails are spread, I guess that would be parallel to the hook itself. See, I got a skinny profile. I do that because I think it gives me a better bluegill profile. The other thing to point out, if I were to rig it so the flat side is down and the trailers then are perpendicular to the hook shank, one thing to note there is your bait's gonna rise more. So if you want your bait to actually stay lower in the water column, rig it so that the tails are parallel with the hook shank itself. And what that's going to do is it's going to give you just a little bit different profile. So if I'm fishing bluegill, then you might want to give the profile where you actually have your trailers that are parallel with it. I'm going to trim the skirt. This is a brand new one, just a tad to give a little bit more freedom to my trailer so that my legs kick a little bit more compact look. Because the reality is, if some of your skirt material is clipping these legs, you're not going to get the kicking motion that you'd like to see. Much better. So in this case, I'm going to fish this a little bit different than, say, my boot tail. I'm going to let this hit the bottom in this case because I've got some rocks up here, and I'm actually fishing it not like a jig. I'm still retrieving it, but I'm trying to make more bottom contact. I do feel like the Craw style trailers, like I said, they do a better job at mimicking a crayfish, and they do a better job at mimicking, say, bluegills. So generally speaking, I try to keep this a little bit deeper in the water column. I fish it a little bit slower, and generally speaking, I'm fishing it right around cover. I'm not, I'm not going to be necessarily fan casting. It's a really good bait for fishing around docks if you know you've got a lot of largemouth that are hanging around docks. In this case, northern Wisconsin smallmouth, think they're largemouth half the time and hang around docks. It's also a really good presentation to be fishing just around your weeds and your lily pads, which is another reason why I like my trailer to be parallel with the bend in the hook. If I'm coming through pads, it just seems to come through better because your bait is more streamlined. Oh, that's a nice one. Largemouth. It's a nice one. 2-pounder on the bluegill with the pit boss. So I don't know if you guys noticed on that one, but I was actually fishing that like a jig. I was just working it through this log jam right here, and that largemouth came and ate it. And that's kind of the difference. So like for me, I really like the Craw style trailers anytime I need the bait to make motion on its own. Meaning, if the bait is falling with flappers, it's moving just like you would with a jig. I can't really do that with a boot tail. It just doesn't have the same motion. So if I feel like I'm gonna be fishing some targets, and in that case, I was just like working the bait as a jig through that, through the laydown right here. Like I feel like that's, for me, one of the biggest differences. If I know I need to get my bait down and in it where I'm not gonna be straight retrieving it, and I need to depend on my bait to create the actual movement and the attraction, that's when I go with a Craw style. If I can just cover water and keep my bait moving to the point where my boot tail is gonna make movement, that's when I know I can really just concentrate on throwing a boot tail. God. That's a nice one. Another nice largemouth. Come up here. Oh, that's a good one. Close to 3-pounder. Little indented belly, not what I like to see, but good one. So you can see in that instance, 3 times to that stump it took for that fish to get it. But I was just hitting it, fishing it just like a jig, threw it in there, and yeah, he was hitting it right away, but my intent is to keep it right in that strike zone. Okay, we got one more trailer design I'm gonna show you, and hopefully show you that that one works too. The last style trailer I want to show you is this guy right here. That's your chunk style. This is the Maxcent Meaty Chunk by Berkley. Now, one of the key important things with this, and we're going to do the Alabama Shake, is to throw a swim jig that's lighter. So this is the 1/4 ounce model. Then, instead of threading the bait up, I highly recommend just nose hooking it. So you want to create some distance from the jig, you want to create some bulk, and what that does, and because it's in this case perpendicular to my hook shank, when I float this thing, so I'm going to give it a lot of rapid tips, I'm going to be able to float the bait higher up in the water column. The whole key here is to keep this bait up and off the bottom. That was a big one. That was a big one, guys. He got me right on that log. So as you just saw with that bite, it's a very visual bite. You know, your bait is up in the water column, so generally speaking, you see a lot of the bites. You at least see swirls on it. But one of the main things to point out anytime you're doing the Alabama shake is you're generally not fishing huge areas. Yes, you could be going through a pad field or a big, you know, stretch of grass, but a lot of times you're just fishing really specific targets. So in this case, I'm fishing down a cut bank that's got some logs mixed in. But once I'm gonna say 10 feet off the bank, my chances of getting bit have drastically reduced. Most of my bites will come within 2 feet of that bank or any piece of wood. And that was a pike, just bit me off. I gotta love the toothy critters. But that's exactly what I'm talking about. They're gonna be using that spot right there. We saw the bite, I saw the fish, and I'm gonna retie, start shaking again. So I'm tying on another bluegill. One other thing I want to point out with this one is that I did not trim the skirt. I actually want my bait to be bigger and bulkier, so I did not trim my skirt. The bigger, the bulkier, the better. It makes one, it just helps keep the bait floating. The plastic material, the more you take off, the more that bait wants to actually sink. So just one thing to note. Hopefully we don't get bit off again. This is my last bluegill one that I've got in the boat. And I'm gonna throw back for him. Let's see if we can get him. That was awesome. He's up in like an inch of water. Come here. Long, skinny river fish. You like the Alabama shake. I like the Alabama shake. So let's talk a little bit about my setup here. It doesn't vary that much based on swim jig type, although I will say if I'm fishing the Alabama shake and I'm in really heavy cover, I don't think braid is a bad thing. Braid can help, especially because braid stays up a little bit, helps keep the bait up. But generally you're fishing around heavier cover and the bait's so high that I don't think the braid affects the number of bites, so I will throw braid with that. The other setups though, I will throw just straight fluorocarbon. I generally throw 15 pound, and I'll just throw it on a medium heavy 7.3. This is a MHX NMB 874. And then I typically prefer a faster gear ratio reel. In this case, this is the Xenon MGX by Abu Garcia. And it's their 8.1, 8.3. I can never keep them all straight. It's the 8-speed. And I just like a little faster one. It helps keep the bait up, and a lot of times when you get a bite on a swim jig, they hit it and they keep moving, so it allows you to keep up with the fish. Nice smallmouth. That's a good one. Come here. Give you the belly hold. They love the belly hold. You old Alabama shaking some smallmouth. That's a good long one. Skinny summer fish. Probably still close to 3 pounds. I love it. Well guys, I think I've showed you the 3 types of trailers that I really like to throw. They definitely have a time and a place. They all catch fish. Pair them up with a core tackle swim jig and you will not be disappointed, I can tell you that. One of my absolute go-to favorite baits. catch a pile of fish on it. Won more money probably on a swim jig than anything else. At least won more tournaments, that's for sure. All right, guys, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed today's video, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Stay tuned, we'll have a new one coming out tomorrow for you.